this situation.
Was I not just live? Okay. Okay. I don't know if I was just live earlier, but we'll talk about this again after.
That President Zelensky and the Ukrainian delegation were placed in. For all those who were present, the fact that we paid tribute to that individual without knowing who he was a terrible error and a violation of the memory of those who cruelly suffered at the hands of the Nazi regime.
Position.
It was the personal responsibility of the Prime Minister to invite President Zelensky to the floor of this House of Commons. It was his personal responsibility to make sure it was a diplomatic success. It was his personal responsibility to continue to lead the government that has the security, intelligence, and diplomatic agencies that could have and should have vetted all individuals who were present and recognized. Yet this Prime Minister allowed for a monumental, unprecedented, and global shame to unfold in this chamber. Will he take personal responsibility for this shame and personally apologize on behalf of himself?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
This story is extraordinary, especially if it's true. And it all started in the desert, just north of Las Vegas.
A local scientist who's worked at Groom Lake
said to be where
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of all of us in this House, I would like to present unreserved apologies for what took place on Friday and to President Zelensky and the Ukrainian delegation for the position they were put in. For all of us who were present to have unknowingly recognized this individual was a terrible mistake and a violation of the memory of those who suffered grievously at the hands of the Nazi regime.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Did the Prime Minister's national security, intelligence, or diplomatic officials vet the names of the people that the Prime Minister allowed within mere feet of President Zelensky?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the privilege and responsibilities and rights of parliamentarians are sacrosanct, and that the Leader of the Opposition would be suggesting that any visitor to this House should be vetted by the government of the day is actually a grievous attack on the rights and privileges of parliamentarians. However, if the Leader of the Opposition or the Speaker or anyone wants our intelligence agencies to vet any of their guests, we would be more than happy to do that in respect of parliamentary rights.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
The Prime Minister has just said that he allowed the president of a war-torn country, who is perhaps the biggest target of false propaganda and of potential assassinations, to be surrounded by hundreds of people who had not been vetted for their security background, potential risks that they present, or in this case, the massive diplomatic disasters that they could have brought to that event. Is he really saying that he did absolutely nothing to protect the Ukrainian president from all of those many risks?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The facts are well known here. The Speaker issued the invitation, delivered the recognition, and has taken full responsibility. The Leader of the Opposition knows that not one parliamentarian was aware. But the truth does not matter to this Leader of the Opposition. He distorts, misleads, aims to confuse, all for partisan gain. It's all he knows how to do.
You put somebody's life in jeopardy. And still to this day, he put
Mr. Speaker,
a lot of heart
again,
into
he
this.
deflects blame and responsibility for his personal failings. It is the duty of the Prime Minister to protect our diplomatic reputation. It was therefore his duty to ensure that his diplomatic, intelligence, and security forces ensured there was no one who could potentially present a danger either to the reputation or to the physical safety of the people present at such a massive international event.
Right.
But today, he said he did none of those things, and instead, after he found out about it, he hid in his cottage for 3 days. Is that what it means to take responsibility for this Prime Minister?
That's exactly what he
Right
did.
Honourable Prime Minister.
He went and fucking hid in his fucking
Speaker, we
cottage.
all know how many
Waiting for somebody
years
to
the
write
Leader of the
these
Opposition
speeches
has
for him.
served in this House, and we can surely remember all the times he has stood up to defend the honor, the rights, the privileges of parliamentarians. And yet now, in order to make partisan attacks, he is proposing that the government of the day have the ability to vet and oversee the rights of parliamentarians and indeed of the Speaker to include people in this House, to invite them into this House. I know that the Leader of the Opposition used to have more respect for Parliament than that, but he's busy making a partisan attack.
A partisan attack. Guy's so
Are you
full
still
of shit, his
stuffing
eyes
your
are brown.
kangaroo hoodie pockets? Meet the
fucking-
new, improved Bearskin Tactical
His
Hoodie
dad's not
2.0.
fucking
6
Trudeau,
zip
Elliot
pockets
Trudeau.
on
His dad's
waist,
fucking
arms,
Castro.
and back.
I don't know why he's not standing with the Russians, because fucking damn your fucking communists.
The honourable
this
member
piece
for
of shit.
Belleuil-Chambly. Better late than never, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to congratulate the Prime Minister on his decision to accept the repeated demands to apologize to Parliament and beyond. And his definition of the Leader of the Official Opposition is not entirely wrong either. But I would like to ask the Prime Minister if he has personally called President Zelensky to present his and our apology.
Yeah,
And whether he has
where's
a
his
strategy
fucking apology?
to fight the Russians' horrible misinformation campaign along with our allies. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Yes, Mr. Speaker, it is extremely unfortunate to see that this mistake made here in the House on Friday is being used by the Russians
This is Trudeau talking.
to
now.
continue
They're using
sharing
the same
propaganda
translator.
about why Ukraine is defending itself and why the Russians chose to invade Ukraine. Here in Canada, we will continue to firmly defend Ukraine and the principles of territorial integrity and sovereignty. We have shared that solidarity with the President of Ukraine on multiple occasions over
Look
the
at
last
him
few days.
dancing around the
Honourable
questions.
member.
I love it how he dances
It is
around the questions.
regrettable,
He's
Mr.
just a
Speaker,
fucking goofball.
because
this
that
stupid
should have been the
piece of
first
shit.
thing that the Prime Minister
Go
did.
back to teaching fucking drama and
And
drama
yet, from the
class.
Prime Minister's answer, I believe that he's saying that he did not call President Zelensky, who, other than the Jewish community, is the biggest victim of this error. Will he commit to calling President Zelensky? And will he commit to doing something to fight Russian propaganda? And that we do something urgently within and outside Canada to promote healing with the Jewish community? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have sent several direct messages to the Ukrainian people and President Zelensky. At the same time, we will continue to stand strong against propaganda and misinformation stemming from Russia. Russia invaded its neighbor, its peaceful neighbor, and is attacking the rules-based international order. We will always stand on the side of the international order and on the side of Ukrainians.
Data Burnaby said.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister has said
Here's
that he
where it
was
is good.
embarrassed about what happened in the chambers. But it's not about him. It's much more than that. Real damage has been done. Real
Exactly.
damage to the Jewish community, real damage to the war
Ukraine.
effort in Ukraine, and real damage to Canada's reputation.
Yeah,
Now,
they're a bunch of
finally,
goofballs.
after 3 days, the Prime Minister has finally said something. But he's got to take action. What is he going to do in concrete terms to clean up this mess?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I pointed out, this was deeply embarrassing,
Oh,
not just to all
he's just gonna dance around the
parliamentarians, but
question,
to Canada as well. We stand firmly with Ukraine. We will continue to stand against Russian aggression, against Russian propaganda, and we will continue to ensure with the military aid, with the humanitarian aid, with the financial aid, with the diplomatic aid we are engaged with around the world that will continue and indeed step up its efforts to counter Russian propaganda. We will continue to stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes, with whatever it takes. Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Il a pris 3 jours.
It took the Prime
This is
Minister
mid-sing,
3 days
again,
to finally
speaking.
say something
In French, though. Because you got to be able to speak
about what
French. to be
happened in this
Parliament.
House. He has said that he is embarrassed, but this isn't about him. Real damage has been done.
Damage
Now
control.
we need concrete action.
You can't fix that shit. You can't fix stupid.
What will the Prime Minister do to finally clean up this mess? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, this was indeed deeply embarrassing for all parliamentarians and Canada. But we must continue to firmly stand with Ukraine. We must continue to fight Russian propaganda and its arrogance. And we must be firmly on the side of Ukraine. To date, we have invested nearly $9.5 billion in humanitarian and military assistance, diplomatic activities, economic assistance for Ukraine, and we will continue to be there to support Ukraine with everything that it needs for as long as it needs.
Speaker, days of silence from this Prime Minister in the face of an international diplomatic crisis that has brought shame on this entire country. An actual Nazi honored in this place, and instead of taking personal responsibility, he blamed the Speaker, went into hiding, and waited 3 days even to call for his resignation. He instructed his MPs to try to wipe the parliamentary record, to forget it. The Prime Minister is there for all of the glory. And when he makes a mess, he's nowhere to be seen. And now he says no one was vetted.
He always
owes
goes and hides when he
Canadians to
fucking
take
gets in
personal
trouble.
responsibility. Will he
Disappears
stand
for
up
like
on
a
his feet
week
and
or
just do it
3
today?
days or whatever.
The Right Honourable Prime
He's a
Minister.
fucking
Mr. Speaker, the principle of independence of Parliament from the government of the day is well established, and the government is always there to work with opposition parties or with the Speaker if they have concerns or questions about any of the guests they choose to invite into this august chamber. We will continue to stand unequivocally with Ukraine, but we will also at the same time defend the rights and privileges of parliamentarians.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Speaker, the Prime Minister has never been shy to use the Nazi label against his opponents, against Canadians. But not being able to bring himself to take responsibility for an actual Nazi is something that Canadians will not forget. The Prime Minister could have prevented this. He should have prevented it, and he needs to fix it. The world knows that under this Prime Minister, a Nazi was honored in this place. The question is who speaks for Canada? And if it's not this Prime Minister, isn't it time for Canadians to have one who will?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I think indeed Canadians and the world are watching very carefully what has happened this week and the terrible error that happened on Friday. But I think they are also interested in seeing who's trying to make partisan hay out of this, who's trying to look for gains out of what was obviously a terrible, terrible mistake. Mr. Speaker, it is important that we learn from this and stand even stronger with Ukraine going forward, that we counter Russian propaganda. But Mr. Speaker,
In the Great Rift Valley of Africa, 750,000.
The Honourable Member for Charleswood, St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
heading.
Community is horrified that Liberals allowed a Nazi to be honored on the floor of this House and is demanding an apology from the Prime Minister. He has embarrassed Canada on the international stage, caused a diplomatic disaster, and has handed the Kremlin a propaganda win. He has brought shame on this House and deeply offended the Jewish community. Will he stand in this House today, finally take personal responsibility, do the right thing, and personally apologize on behalf of himself?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
It was incredibly upsetting that this happened. The outgoing speaker took responsibility and resigned, as was the right thing to do. We recognize the deep pain this caused for Jewish communities and for all who were victims of Nazi atrocities and their descendants. An embarrassment for Parliament and for Canadians, and it reaffirms the need to keep promoting and investing in Holocaust education, something our government has and always will continue to support.
Gentleman member Charleswood, St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
Mr. Speaker, the buck stops with this Prime Minister. That is simply not good enough. Not one bit. Not only did the Prime Minister bring shame on this House, on Monday he tried to bury this sort of affair with a motion to strike history from the record. Instead of learning from history, the Prime Minister wants to erase it. Conservatives said no. Again, he has brought shame on this House and deeply, deeply offended the Jewish community. They demand a personal apology. Will he stand in the House today and finally take personal responsibility and apologize to this community?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Important to note, Mr. Speaker, that all parliamentarians agreed unanimously yesterday that the tribute to this individual was withdrawn. That's what happened yesterday, Mr. Speaker. We do not want that to stand into the future. But we also know, Mr. Speaker, that we need to continue to stand every day with the people of Ukraine as they fight against this illegal invasion by Vladimir Putin, as they stand for the rules-based order and the principles of the UN Charter that protect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of us all. This government and this country will always stand unequivocally with Ukraine.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, for 3 days, these Liberal members, cabinet ministers, and the Prime Minister have all been blaming the former Speaker for being the only person responsible for what happened on Friday, the fact that a former Nazi received tribute from the House of Commons. But it's impossible that people at the Privy Council, people at the RCMP, people at Global Affairs, and others did not manage to vet
Sorry, when you get
guests,
enough bullshit in your ear,
especially the people invited by the Speaker.
start
So will the
going
Prime Minister
deaf.
personally apologize to Canadians and the international community who are shocked by what happened? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
oh shit.
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members know very well that the independence of the Speaker of the House is very important in our parliamentary system. And the government of the day does not have the right to consider or veto the guest chosen by other parties or even the Speaker of the House. It is very important that we continue to unequivocally stand for Ukraine, that we continue to strongly defend the international rule of law. We will always stand with Ukrainians against Russians. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Well, what I would
I'll let
say
the block go
is
ahead.
that since
Fuck me, I don't
2015,
need
the
to say that.
regulations state that the RCMP is responsible for the operations of the Parliamentary Protective Service, which was put in place at that time after the attack in 2014.
Oh, he's
This House
conservative.
needs to be protected. The PPS does its work supervised by the RCMP. So when a guest like the President of Ukraine comes to Canada, it's only appropriate that the government and the Prime Minister supervise the services to protect our guests. Will the Prime Minister personally apologize to Canadians?
No shit. Yeah. You're the fucking government, dude.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Oh,
Mr.
shit.
Speaker, we all recognize that it was a serious error on the part of the former Speaker of the House. And while we are considering who will be the next Speaker of this House, I know that we will all want to know how we will ensure that mistakes like this one will not happen again. The government will always be there to work with opposition parties and the Speaker's office in order to do background checks for those who visit the House, but it's not up to the government to violate the fundamental rights of members. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, in 2020, a teacher was killed in the south of France, and it took far too long for the Prime Minister to
All I
call
have is a
President
ringing in my
Macron. Is
ear.
the same thing going to happen again? Or
I think
will
I
the
might
Prime
have
Minister
to
call
fucking
President
cut my
Zelensky?
hand off.
I will allow myself on behalf of Quebecers, and I think I
it's
can do this.
possessed.
I think
my hand
I
is
can
Justin
apologize on behalf of
Trudeau.
Quebecers to President
Oh,
Zelensky, offer
Not
our
much different.
cooperation,
He's just a fucking puppet.
and I hope that my message will be transmitted to President Zelensky as of today. The Right Honorable Prime Minister.
Shit.
Mr. Speaker, several days ago, we sent our apologies to President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people through diplomatic channels. And we will continue to work closely with the government of Ukraine to defend its territorial integrity and sovereignty against Russia's cruel invasion and the violations of international law that this invasion of Ukraine represents. So we will stand with Ukraine, and that is my message to President Zelensky, and is the one that I send him regularly when we speak. The Honorable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, I
think
feel
my
deep
ear's
shame
bleeding.
thinking about
I
the
think
Jewish
it's
community
bleeding.
and how they have been harmed both in Quebec and Canada. Once again, I would like to apologize and offer my full cooperation. I'd like to know whether the Prime Minister has done the same and whether he has met with representatives of the Jewish community of Canada.
Oh my God, not again. Not again. Please, not again.
Recording in the gallery there, just texting. Okay, awesome. L'honorable, le très honorable Premier Ministre.
The Right Honorable Prime Minister.
Oh shit.
Mr. Speaker, we have shared our apology on behalf of all parliamentarians today, and for several days we have spoken about how deeply we regret the mistake made by the Speaker of the House. And we will continue to work hard to defend Ukraine and also to support the Jewish community, which is facing a significant increase in anti-Semitism in the world. We will always be there to defend the principles of the rule of law and openness to others. We will always fight for these values and stand with Ukraine.
Honorable Member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
At the end of the day, it is the Prime Minister who is responsible for visiting heads of state. President Zelensky came here expecting a warm welcome and a successful visit, but due to the Prime Minister's haphazard management of this visit, he instead turned it into a diplomatic nightmare. This has played straight into Russia's disinformation campaign against Ukraine. The Prime Minister must accept full responsibility. Will he publicly apologize to President Zelensky today for his failure?
The Right Honorable Prime Minister.
Not again. Oh
I
shit.
just apologize on behalf of parliamentarians and Canadians. We will continue to be there to stand with President Zelensky and Ukrainians. But if members of the opposition want the help of security agencies to vet their guests, if they want, for example, us to vet who 3 members of their team would have lunch with when they're meeting with a far-right German politician, we would be happy to give them advice on who they should meet with and who they should not meet with, Mr. Speaker. But respecting Parliament and parliamentary privilege continues to be our priority.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
The Prime Minister has a duty of care to present President Zelensky when he was right here in Canada. The Parliamentary Protective Service, the RCMP.
All right, we've been listening live from Parliament Hill in Ottawa as there are repeated calls for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to offer a personal apology for what took place on Friday. That's when then House Speaker Anthony Rota recognized Nazi veteran Yaroslav Honka during the visit of Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. However, Prime Minister Trudeau has only offered an apology on behalf of Parliament.
Holy fuck. Oh. Oh. Fuck me.
And is sticking to it.
Oh my God, that fucking hurt. Oh. that was interesting. Oh, I thought that was a Canadian Tire commercial. Now let's just go to my homepage. Nice, simple, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I want to talk about this a little bit. So, when they had the truckers blockage in Ottawa, Alberta, and I can't remember what bridge it was, Trudeau was calling people fucking Nazis, okay? And now he let a Nazi in. And there's also the We scandal, the We charity scandal, where he gave $200 million of Canadian money to two scam artists and invited them into Parliament, where they also got a standing ovation. So, when it comes to voting, I don't know. I don't have a lot of Canadians that watch my channel. But if you're gonna vote, vote PC, please. Like right now here where I live, our PC Premier is a piece of shit. But I trust that our leaders in PC, if we don't vote for the PCs we have right now, we can't get more votes. There are more seats in the House. So we gotta push for PC. But we really need to fucking do something here when it comes to government here. I think Polyev will make a lot of changes, and it'll be his gig. You know, he'll do something fucking different here. And that's what we need something different. And I don't mean like Trump different. I mean like do something different. Because Trudeau just totally killed our fucking economy with oil and gas. And oil and gas is the way to go. Like this greenhouse gas shit. Like we're getting taxed more than places like China. Like it's ridiculous. Just because of our population. And you know what? We're not polluting any more than China or India. We're just getting fucked over. We're paying more taxes than they are because of population. Stephen Harper had a thing going. He put all our money into oil and gas. And then we have this stupid fucking high school teacher come in and just fuck it all up for us. And he's a drama teacher. Doesn't teach math or anything. He's a fucking drama teacher. What kind of fucking education do you need to fucking do that shit for? But anyways, I'm out of here. This is something different that I did. I'm gonna do my regular thing tomorrow and talk about what's happening. But I'm just really pissed off about this. And it's funny. They had the whole parliament clapping for this guy. So it made everyone look bad. It made everyone look bad. That's the fucked up part. Even Zelensky was clapping. If he would have known he was a fucking Nazi, I guess that would have been a different fucking scenario. Okay. I don't want to leave on a shitty note. If you guys made it this far. Do you guys ever sing in the shower? You know, whistle? I love to whistle. I think I'm a pretty good whistler. I can whistle in, out, with my teeth, and in and out with my teeth, in and out with my lips. But the only thing I can't do is whistle through my... I don't know how people do that. No one's ever showed me how to do it properly. Everything else I learned myself. I can whistle in and out through my teeth, but when I learned how to whistle sucking in first before I could blow out, which is really weird because it's very similar. It's just a slight twitch of the tongue. But whistle, you guys. Whistle. And then if you ever see the whistle at the moon. Whistle at the moon. If you ever see the northern lights, don't believe the stigma or the stories you hear. Whistle at the northern lights. They'll talk back. But see, they're just saying they love you. But anyways, anyone who stuck around this far, love you. Peace out. And really think about who you're gonna vote for. Please. Okay, I'm gonna remind you guys again. If you're Canadian, please think about who you're gonna vote. But you gotta vote PC, okay? It doesn't matter if you don't like that person or not. They will get the axe eventually, okay? But that person needs to be in power to do the axing, okay? Another motivational thing. Dress up some days. Wear fancy clothes. Put on your good shoes, put on your good pants. Wear something you haven't worn. There's always that outfit you have in the back of your closet. Throw it on every once in a while. Even if you're just sitting at home, lounging around. You know? I call that my birthday suit. Throw on your birthday suit every once in a while. And I don't mean walking around naked. Your second birthday suit. But, yeah. Makes you feel good sometimes. Throw on your birthday suit, go get a fucking haircut. Nothing better than that. Makes you feel like, I don't know, it uplifts you. It's a good thing. But anyways, after that, I don't want to come down with any more downers or anything. I want to leave on a fucking high note. But peace out, y'all. Always try and be a better person. And do what you can. Yeah, just try and be a better person.